Hello there, I'm Lindsay, and today One Cancer Place introduces you to the poignant story of Danny, one in a series of personal stories that provides a peek into the authentic life of a cancer patient. We hope that you can find the magic in these unique stories because each of these lives is lived to the hilt, in service for others and in deep gratitude for survival.
My name is Danny Sproehnle, and I had stage 4 colon cancer diagnosed in November of 2019.
Wow, so that's a particularly odd and interesting time to discover that you are living with cancer. So I guess I'm a little bit curious about what it's been like in a global pandemic to be, living with cancer.
Yes, well, it was definitely a difficult, but in another aspect, it was kind of a blessing. So it was really difficult because obviously I was going through surgeries and treatments, and my family couldn't always be there, or it was on a very limited basis. I remember actually on my fifth surgery, I had gotten what was called a hepatic artery pump, which is a pump that gets inserted into your stomach, and then you get chemo in that pump, which goes into your liver, which is where I happen to have mets at in my liver. And I had the pump installed, and I was having a lot of issues with the pump, and I was going in for a simple revision surgery to have it fixed so that it was working properly and better. And I was supposed to get released and go home, and it was a one day, in and out surgical procedure. It was supposedly like a no big deal. Well, it didn't turn out that way, and I had woken up and was being wheeled into a hospital room for a stay. And they would not let my family in. And at that point, I had gotten some bad news that the pump was unable to be fixed, and therefore I was not going to be able to get that form of treatment anymore. And I just, was bawling in a room by myself, and it was just a really awful, defeating, depressing feeling. But,
Yeah.
I think when you go through cancer, or certainly, I'll speak for myself, I always try to remain to have a good positive stance. I think that being positive really helps pull you through most of the ordeal. And so even though I was upset, I just had to, at that moment, allow myself to be upset. So I always say, well, you just have to allow yourself to kind of, feel whatever it is you're feeling. And it's okay to feel bad. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to be sad. You just can't stay there too long. So that was how that went from a COVID standpoint. It was really impactful, and it was very difficult. And I think a lot of patients went through that during COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The positive part about it was, obviously I was going through treatment. I wasn't feeling well. So I didn't feel bad that I was stuck in. I didn't feel bad that the whole world was doing something that I wasn't doing, because nobody was going anywhere and no one was doing anything. My family that lived within my home was home, because everybody was kind of, at that point on a little bit of a lockdown for a couple of months, working from home and whatnot. So I had people around me all the time, help caretake me. And so from that point, it was rather positive.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your household. Who was in your family, and maybe what were some of the things that you all were doing in those 2 months of lockdown together?
So we cooked a lot. I have a lot of plants, and continue to kind of, people kept bringing me plants and buying me plants, and they made me really happy, and I would take care of them. And talk to them every day. And I did continue to work through all of my treatments and my surgeries. And because of COVID, I was working from home, not just because of COVID, but also obviously because I was ill, but it kind of worked hand in hand. So I was doing what everyone else was doing, which was working from home and not feeling, oh, wow, I'm too sick to go to work kind of a thing.
Yeah.
We played a lot of board games. We laughed a lot. I have a little doggy, so I was able to really be home with him, and he got extra attention, which was really nice.
What are some of your favorite board games?
I like Monopoly, and I like Scrabble, and sometimes we'll play Rummy. We played a bunch of card games, some poker, five course stud. I have two boys, so when I was diagnosed, they were 15 and 17, and I'm a single mom. So it was just kind of nice that we were able to be together and kind of hang out. I have a strange relationship with their father. So even though we're not together and we've been divorced for probably 19 years now. I always said that I was going to maintain the best relationship that I could with their dad, because obviously I was attached to him for the rest of my life and he was attached to me. And I felt that it was the right thing to do and the best thing in my children's interest. So I would say even for a month or two, my ex-husband kind of took a spare room in our household, and he kind of stayed with us as well. Also from the standpoint of being sick, it was a little bit of a difficult position to put on a 15 and a 17-year-old. I had gone through some really difficult and challenging times with the chemotherapy, and I also had a colostomy bag that I had a very difficult time managing. So my ex-husband, I was grateful that he was there because I felt that it took some of the pressure off of my young children having to take care of me. And I knew that
Yeah.
this way, if God forbid there was anything serious, there was another adult in the house. So that was helpful.
That's incredible. Do you think that in some ways going through that has brought your family closer, like you and your sons and your ex-husband?
Absolutely. I mean, we were always pretty close, but I think it's changed the dynamic of the way that we all think about life. And somebody said the other day, they said cancer isn't a death sentence, it's a life sentence. And that really kind of struck me, because going through an experience of having cancer, you want to live every moment. And so that's why it is really a life sentence, and should changed all of us on how we interact with each other and how we view life, because things can change at any time and nothing's ever promised. And so even though I'm living with a chronic illness, I live every day much differently than I did before my diagnoses. And I think for my children and my ex-husband as well.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the ways that your day-to-day is different.
Well, I definitely do not, or try not to, stress over things that I don't have control over or that aren't worth putting energy into. I really like to I really try to live like a very balanced, very healthy kind of a lifestyle. And that's from a physical standpoint as well as a mental standpoint. So if something doesn't work for me, like I used to be a big people pleaser, and I would want to make everybody happy. And I would often, maybe do things that I didn't really want to do because I was making other people happy. And I've kind of decided that I don't want to do that anymore. It's about, making me happy, and that's okay. And so I don't let anybody take space in my physical or my mental presence that isn't healthy for me, let's say. So it's all about being balanced and feeling good. I used to work all the time. And now I'm like, okay, you know what? If I get into the office at 9:30, that's okay too. There's nothing that's going to shift or change in my work presence that a half an hour or an hour is going to make a difference. As a matter of fact, today I avidly work out and I didn't get to work out this morning. And I said, well, I'm going to leave work at 4 o'clock today because I need to get a workout in. And that's what I need to do for me and to keep me mentally and physically healthy. And so I'm going to leave work at 4 o'clock today. And whatever work is here will be here when I get in tomorrow. Or I can do it from home, later on if that's what I choose to do. But that's really a big, has been a big component. I take more risks than I took in the sense that, like, if I want to go away, I go away. I don't make excuses or stop to think about should I be kind of doing this. I just want to do what makes me feel good and what makes me happy and what keeps my stress down. And I just want to live life fully and
Yeah,
passionately.
I love that. Okay, I have a couple of questions about the things that you've been doing since you took this whole new intentional direction with the way that you're living your life. Number one, I want to know what kinds of workouts do you enjoy?
So I like to run. I was always like growing up, always had a little bit of a weight problem. I was always a little bit like chunky, they would say. I wasn't like overly obese or anything, but I always had a couple extra pounds. I was not a very physical person. I'm a creative person. So doing, physical things were never my thing. And I would continue through the course of my life to try and just really never liked being physical. But I started to run. Of course, it started with walking and then a really brisk walk and then pushing myself to walk and run. And then it became running. And it just became a really freeing feeling for me. And also I felt like I was in control, if that makes any sense, like feeling the wind in my hair and passing people that are walking and I'm moving faster than them. The physical mindset that it takes to be able to run, I'm going to say through the pain because it can often be painful, but at the end that becomes so exhilarating for me and very freeing. And I live across the street from a state park. It's very hilly. So at times it can be really trying. And when you can get in the beginning, obviously that I couldn't get up certain hills. I couldn't run them, or I could only run to a certain point and then I couldn't do it anymore. But when you get over those hurdles, it's just there's something really euphoric about it.
Yeah,
So,
that's amazing.
yeah, so I did a lot of running and then I decided that I was going to do a race, a 10-mile race. And I didn't care about the time. The time wasn't a factor for me. It was just actually running and getting through the 10 miles. And I picked a race that was a fairly flat race, not a lot of hills, because I knew doing 10 miles was going to be a little difficult for me. And from there, I set my sight on a trainer because I had just come out of treatment. My last treatment was in April of 20 and my last surgery was in May of 20 and the race was in October. So I only had a couple of months to really be able to get my stamina up to do the 10 miles. And I knew I was at that point, I was pretty thin, but no muscle. I had lost virtually all my muscle mass from being ill. And so I had set my sights to go find a trainer that would work for me, that would be able to help build me and get my muscle mass back up so that I would have the strength and the endurance to do the 10 miles. And that's what I did. I worked out with a personal trainer for 4 or 5 months straight. I worked out with him 2 days every single week and very rarely missed an appointment. And I could really start to see a lot of body changes, certainly a lot more strength. And now I continue to do classes within that same gym. So I don't do private training anymore, but we do classes. And some of those classes can be, you know, pretty, pretty grueling. I think yesterday, I don't know, we did a mix of, some biking, stationary biking, and then we mixed that in with some weight training in between, and then some jump roping. So I do that twice a week. And I think the last piece that I'm missing that I would like to start to incorporate is going to be some yoga or Pilates. I just think doing really slow, isolating kind of strength movements will add another layer to my physical that I'm probably missing. So that's one of my goals for this year, is to kind of get started with adding in a day or two of some yoga.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I just literally yesterday started training for a half marathon. So I am looking at that hill trying to meet you at the top of it.
It's yes, but when you get to the top, it is glorious. I mean, there is no better feeling than that.
Well, that's what my friend who tricked me into doing it has promised.
I promise you. I second it. I promise you.
Amazing. Okay, the second thing I wanted to know is, where have you taken your mini getaways? You said, if I want to go away, I go. So where have you gone, and what inspired you to go to each place, or?
So during my treatment, my whole family, obviously, I have a very supportive, very close knit family. I'm one of three girls. So I have two sisters, and we all live in different states. My parents are in Florida, but we're all very close knit, talk on the phone almost daily, and just I kind of find it a rarity, because even though we're all different and we all have our own kind of a lifestyle, we all really get along for the most part and really love each other. And I have to say, without my siblings in particular, I don't know where through the course of treatment that I would be. I mean, they drove me and took me and were by my side through whatever the hospital, obviously through the COVID, would dictate. But, they would take turns and they would come to my house if I needed, or a ride, or whatever. I mean, they were just so incredibly supportive that I wish for everybody that they had that same kind of support. And my one sister, Allie, kept saying, "You're going to get through this. And as soon as you get through this, we are all going on a family vacation." And so recently we just came back from Mexico. We went to Zihuatanejo. They call it Ziwa for short. And, we were still kind of a little skeptical because of the COVID, even though we are all vaccinated and boosted. We had rented a VRBO way up in a secluded kind of a mount hillside. And we had, our own private pool, and we had three beautiful ladies that would come every morning and cook breakfast and lunch for us. And I mean, there was a beach close by in a town, and we did on my bucket list to do surfing. I had never surfed before. So we all went, pretty much all of us. I mean, my parents are up in yours, so they didn't go. And I think there were a couple others that weren't interested in surfing. But for the most part, my whole family went. We all were out there, surfing, which was pretty incredible. And I said to my children, everyone today is you grow up, you have your own, lifestyle, you have your careers. We are all spread, my whole family everywhere. So, I have a sibling in Connecticut, a sibling in Baltimore. My parents are in Florida. I have a niece in California, a nephew in Toronto. I have a nephew in Carolinas. So we're all kind of spread. And for us to all be able to join for 7 days in one place, really something that doesn't happen very often. And it was just a wonderful experience. And I got to surf. I couldn't get up on the surfboard. We were out there for probably 2 hours, and I tried, and it just wasn't the sport for me, but now I can say I tried.
You can check it off the list. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really amazing. I mean, it was just a beautiful, relaxing, hang out, family vacation. I had never been to Canada, so I had been telling my nephew had lived there for 5 years, and I kept saying, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. And when I was out of treatment and better, I booked that ticket, and I went for a long weekend, and it was a fantastic city, a lot of arts, and we really just had a great time. And I desperately hate the cold weather. I live obviously in the East. I live in Philadelphia, and it's obviously very cold here right now. And I dislike it very much. So we went to Mexico in December, and now I'm going to go to Florida and visit my parents and do a little getaway there. And then, I often think, so like I'm still working, and I still have fairly young children, one that I'm getting ready to put through college, or he'll start college next year. But I'm really thinking about possibly reinventing my career and or slash semi-retiring, and moving to definitely like a warmer climate.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you have really made a lot of discoveries in this time that can feel so sort of oppressive and suppressive, because you're literally trying to suppress something inside of you, or but it looks like, and it sounds like, you've been able to open yourself up in a way that's pretty special. And it sounds like one of the things that was necessary for that to happen was a confidence in the community around you, which you are so fortunate to have. What's something else that you would tell someone who's living with cancer to make sure that they try to incorporate in their life to give them their best outcomes and their best experiences while living with cancer?
So I think one of the main things is to be an empowered patient. I think that that's first and foremost a really, really important. I think there's a lot of patients that don't get involved enough with with information. And I think that that's really crucial in trying to make the best treatment plans for you. So I think that that's really important, because I think that you need to feel really good about the decisions that you're making for your treatment plan. I definitely think that you have to. So one of my favorite sayings, and actually I've adopted it and put it on a couple of t-shirts, is that I am not a statistic. And I think that we always need to keep hope. We need to be involved. We need to be empowered. And, yes, there's statistics out there that that you're going to read that's going to kind of tell you maybe how good this drug is or that drug is. But ultimately, I think we need to remember as patients that we're individuals, and that what I have or my situation is different than or what someone else may have or what they may react to, from a treatment plan. I think that sometimes we kind of get lumped into a group because we have the same diagnoses or diagnosis. And I think that we have to remember that we're all individuals. And so we're all different. And I don't ever really want to be lumped in as a statistic, because I'm not a statistic, I'm a person. And I think that's a really strong thing to keep in your thought pattern as you're going through the process.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Well, Danny, it's been lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. Is there anything else that you want to say before we get out of here today?
Just, anybody who's going through this, just like I said, keep hope, stay involved, be empowered, and that's by continuing education and learning, and of course, pay it forward.
Danny spoke a lot about what it means to have a supportive community and to be your own best and most informed advocate. One Cancer Place is the newest patient-led community that leads the way in delivering the revolution in cancer care to its growing membership of cancer stakeholders and patients. Find and connect with One Cancer Place online at www.onecancerplace.org. That's www.onecancerplace.org.